Today's edition of MacVoices is supported by MacPaw, the maker of Clean My Mac X. Visit macpaw.com/podcast to download your copy and use the code MacVoices to save 5%. MacVoices is supported by LinkedIn Jobs. Find the right person for your business today with LinkedIn Jobs. Pay what you want and get $50 off your first job post at linkedin.com/MacVoices. Welcome to MacVoices Live. This is the talk of the Apple community on Facebook Live. I'm Chuck Joyner, and I'm happy to welcome two very special guests with me tonight. Everybody's talking about WWDC next week, what they're going to announce, who's going to announce it, what are we going to see, what do they want, what's the rumor, what's the wish list. And I wanted to take a little bit different angle and do something fresh. And that's why we're going to talk about why we don't think that that in-person conferences are going to go away anytime soon. Right now, yes, it's a good idea for us to have an online conference to protect the safety and health of everyone. But at some point, we're going to go back to having in-person conferences. So let's find out who's here, and then we'll go from there. First up, Ms. Kelly Guimont from the Mac Observer's Daily Observations. Kelly, it's good to see you.
It's lovely to be here with you, Chuck, as always.
Thank you so much for doing this. This is going to be fun.
So long-time listener, first-time caller, that's how this works, right, on a live show?
Well, yeah, more or less, or just people, typing in things in chat or bothering us in some other way. But yeah. And also we have Brittany Smith back with us, who will give us the psychological view of things. At least I hope she will. Brittany, it's good to see you.
It's great to be here again, Chuck. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, it's perfect. It's perfect. And you were sort of the inspiration for this idea for the three of us to get together, because the friendship we have and getting to know each other would never have happened if we hadn't met just completely randomly at WWDC last year. And was it just last year or 2 years?
Last year.
Last year. Okay. It seems like a lot longer because, you've been on the show a few times so it feels like I really know you. And yet, we just spent a couple days in San Jose at DubDub. And of course, then Kelly is a mutual friend, and that just cemented it all together. And so,
well, I hauled Brittany to San Jose, which is how the two of you met. So,
right, I was going to say randomly or Kelly. Yes. It's one of those.
It's not quite that random. Yeah.
Okay. I don't think I realized. I mean, I knew you two knew each other, but I don't think I realized, Kelly, that you brought Brittany.
Yeah. As part of some of the fundraising activity we were doing last year, Brittany was there for that as well. She had showed up in order to help out. So she was one of the volunteers. So we, so that's why she had ended up in town, and her and I just sort of hung out because she'd never been to WWDC before.
Yeah, she had to show me the ropes.
So what I have found is that certain conferences are, I hesitate to say friendlier, but I think just by the very nature of A, their size, and B, their composition, that it seems to be a little more geared toward random interaction and random meetings. The bigger they get, the more difficult that gets because, it just gets crazier. And you're not as likely to run into the same person, 1, 2, 3 times in a day, let alone, in a week. And DubDub, at least for us, and I think it's fair to say that we were hanging out at AltConf last year.
Yeah.
So, that also is a little bit of a different dynamic. But we were there for WWDC week in San Jose. And so, I guess, Brittany, I'm going to turn to you because was this your first DubDub?
It was.
Okay. So what were your impressions of it from based on the topic we're trying to talk about here, the face-to-face interaction?
Oh, that was the whole reason to be there. Yeah, absolutely. It was to hang out with other tech nerds.
And that's it? That just, I know you came as a
volunteering
volunteer,
thing.
but still.
Yeah. No, that was the driving force.
Okay. And Kelly, these are your people, at DubDub. Without question.
To put it mildly, yes.
Yeah, you've been around the tech industry for the Apple tech industry for a long time. So, you being there was sort of obvious, and it would have been strange not to have you there.
Yeah. And I think that might be part of why it sort of feels like Brittany has been at several, because Brittany and I spent a whole lot of last year. We spent the bulk of the week together doing different things here and there.
Yeah.
And so, but Chuck, like, I've seen you at many things. I remember, I want to say it was AltConf, and it was 4 years ago, maybe. And I showed up at the Metreon and walked in, and immediately there you were interviewing people, and you got to meet Mr. Kelly. And like you said, hey, like, we'd been there, literally, Brittany, we'd been there 5, maybe 10 minutes, and come up the stairs around the escalator, and there's Chuck interviewing people. And I'm like, Chuck, my friend Chuck. And I went over and I said hello, and like, meet the elusive Mr. Kelly. He's real. He's not my girlfriend in Canada. And like, he's a real dude. Check him out. And then we did a quick interview, like, right there on the spot. I hadn't even seen anything yet. So it was still like, I'm super jazzed to be here. It's going to be awesome. And like, and part of it is the community piece of it. That's what I like. I liked going when we were in San Francisco. I like going in San Jose, and I like that it's a social event, that it doesn't really matter. I don't know how many people I know who you ask them, are you going to Dub as shorthand for, are you going to be in San Jose in June? And then the follow-up question, if you are interested, is, do you have a ticket? Because most of the time, like, at least informally, it seems like the answer is no. I don't have a ticket to Dub actual. I'm going to Layers. I'm going to Alt. I'm going to, there's another one that goes on at the same time. I am going because everyone I know is going to be there, and, it'll just save me a ton in long distance phone calls, like, whatever. Like, there's always the piece of it that is really nice in that respect. And I think there's also a certain amount of, I get from this what I used to get from Macworld, and there's not a Macworld anymore, which is why I think there's a lot of other folks showing up in San Jose in June that didn't used to.
Well, it's definitely a gathering of the tribe. There's no question about it. Mm-hmm. And by the way, that interview you're talking about at the Metreon, I specifically remember all of that. I remember exactly who I was interviewing when you turned that corner, and I remember meeting your Mr. Kelly and everything. It's like, wow, yeah, you really are real, and you seem like a really nice guy. And so it was great. But so folks, I can absolutely validate there is a Mr. Kelly, a real live in-person Mr. Kelly. Either that or she hired him for the week. I don't know which.
And I've been to their house. So
okay, met him several times. Yes,
many times.
So we have validation. Yeah.
And he does get called that in person for people who are unclear.
I called him that when I first met him.
When I take him to stuff, he does get referred to as Mr. Kelly. So yes, it does happen sometimes.
But Kelly, that when I first went to Dub, and that's a long story. For a long time I wasn't able to go to Dub. Schedules and circumstances just didn't allow it. But when I finally went for the first time, when it was in San Francisco, and then San Jose, I was blown away by the fact that a lot of these people didn't have tickets to the conference. Mm-hmm. And like AltConf was just getting off the ground, and Layers was just getting off the ground, and as you say, at least there are at least one or two others that are sort of conferences at the same time in the same area for the folks that want to be part of this, want to be part of the whole experience. And I'm not talking about somebody that just came up from LA or down from Fresno or whatever. I'm talking like Australia and Sweden. And it's like, and you came here to do what? But you don't have a ticket. And it took me a little while to really appreciate, the sense of community and everything. And of course, the parties that go around, some are sponsored by vendors, some are community parties. And they're just a chance to meet people, interact, ask questions, get answers, and in general, get to know other people in the industry.
Mm-hmm. And there's sort of the overlapping social circle as well. There are people I know that maybe we only have a person or two in common at an event like this. So like I know you and you know a load of other people that I don't know. And I know a load of people that you don't know, like Brittany, or didn't, you know.
Right.
And so like you meet people with various degrees of overlap in those social circles, and that leads to more opportunity to meet more people, you know, and then ostensibly learn different things, do something different. And that all happens sort of at random. You know, you get the text message from the person you do know who is somewhere. Who am I kidding? We're at Dub, right? You get the text message from your friend who's at a bar with a bunch of people that you don't know, and now you get to meet them.
Right.
Like, yeah. And then you do it all over again tomorrow. That's usually how it works. So like that for me, because I'm very outgoing, I really like meeting people, and I never know who I'm going to meet that would be very helpful for someone else that I know to also meet in whatever capacity that might be. I might know somebody who is an iOS developer who's looking for a new gig. I might know somebody who's just ramping up and might need somebody who's seen it all and could, you know, and could be the voice of experience and help form that team. And being able to connect those people is awesome. Or somebody who has a podcast about some topic and somebody else who is an expert on that topic. Like, I know exactly who you should talk to about that. And being able to connect people is a thing that I enjoy. And also just getting to meet new people and find out, like, who are you and what are you about? And like, what, you know, what's your deal? And let's have a conversation. Like, who knows where it's going to go? And that piece of random at a conference is, especially at Dub, because I know that we all have something in common right from the start. That makes it a very easy way to get to talk to people. It makes it a really nice in for a conversation. Were you at that session today? Did you see that thing that this other person was talking about over at Alt? Did you see the presentation about, you know, and getting the opportunity to have that in without it being awkward? You know, there's enough opportunities in life to be a person at like a 7th grade dance, and you don't have to do that at a conference like this.
No, you're absolutely right. And I want to move away from Dub for a second, but I do want to point out that the one evening, I know that the three of us, not necessarily with each other, were engaged in conversations, and they were rolling up the rugs at that point. And I think there were like 6 people, and we said, let's all go get some dinner. And half of us had not met the other half, but it just seemed like, okay, yeah, that's great. You know, we obviously have something in common, and we went and we had a great time. And that's not the kind of thing that you do usually in maybe your local town or in your local circumstance, because first of all, there's finding that commonality that's a challenge. And second, you don't want to be thought of as some kind of stalker or something.
But also if you're local, you might know everybody in that particular circle anyway. Like, you know, if you go to the same meetup all the time, and there's the dozen or 2 dozen other people that all go to that same meetup at the same time, like, you kind of all know each other anyway. So getting a new voice or getting a different angle on something from a new person who might show up is sometimes weird. It can be hard to do.
That's a really good point. For some reason, it doesn't feel strange to approach basically a stranger or two and say, hey, you want to grab a drink there. Mm-hmm. But if you did it at the local bar or at home, it could feel very, very awkward at the very least.
Yes.
So, and I find that same feeling of camaraderie and all when I go to NAB, the National Association of Broadcasters show in Vegas. It's a larger show, and so maybe not quite as much, but there is that sense that everybody has something in common. And so different parties, different social events in the evening, I think foster that, but also just the whole atmosphere. Even if you're a competitor with someone, you might be a friendly competitor. And so the same thing happens. I don't find it happening as much at CES, and I think it's because of the size.
Mm-hmm.
And the lack of commonality. Brittany might be there showing off a new blood pressure gauge, and Kelly, you might be showing off a new video game. And, there's not a lot of, necessary overlap.
Right. And you're only there to see the Internet of Things. So the 3 of us could be there an entire week and never see each other.
Right. Or if you can find those people with similar interests, then it becomes a whole lot of fun. And I know that's what has happened for CES for me, because there's a little cadre of us that, okay, we have breakfast together, we have dinner together, and then if we run across each other on a show floor, it's just pure happenstance. MacVoices is supported by LinkedIn Jobs. When it comes to social networks, there's plenty of controversy. Should you be on one and not the other? Both? What about this one? What about that one? The one place that is immune to those debates is LinkedIn. If you are in business, then you're on LinkedIn, or you should be. More and more business is getting done on LinkedIn than ever before, thanks to both changing attitudes about online connections as well as the limitations imposed by COVID-19. And that's exactly why you want to be looking at LinkedIn Jobs when it comes time to add to your organization. LinkedIn has over 675 million members. Think about that. Over 675 million members. That's an incredible pool of talent to choose from, and LinkedIn Jobs helps narrow the search to put your jobs in front of the people with the right skill set. And now, LinkedIn Jobs is trying to help all of us by supporting the healthcare community. To post a healthcare or essential service job for free, or if you're in another industry and have hiring needs, visit linkedin.com/MacVoices. LinkedIn.com/MacVoices. Terms and conditions apply. That's linkedin.com/MacVoices to post a healthcare or essential service job for free. Thanks to LinkedIn Jobs for their support of MacVoices. This edition of MacVoices is supported by MacPaw, the makers of Clean My Mac X. Your Mac, as good as new. Is your Mac slowing down or not doing what you want? It's time to get Clean My Mac X from MacPaw. Clean My Mac X can help you clean out all that cruft that's been building up on your Mac. Old log files, cache files, email attachments, all those things can slow your Mac down, and they're no longer needed. Clean My Mac X's Smart Scan looks for them, then lets you decide what you want to keep and what can go, making your Mac faster and more stable. Clean My Mac X can also optimize your Mac to improve performance even more. And it can help you review all the apps on your Mac and properly uninstall those you no longer need. Clean My Mac X has everything you need to get your Mac running at its best and keep it that way. But that's not going to happen unless you visit macpaw.com/podcast to download Clean My Mac X today and use the coupon code MacVoices to receive 5% off. Upon visiting macpaw.com/podcast, click the Buy Now button, then scroll to the bottom of your screen to enter the code before completing your purchase. Clean My Mac X is now also available in the Apple App Store. Thanks to MacPaw for their support of MacVoices. Let's just get it out of the way. We were all obviously very disappointed that WW in person was not going to happen. But how do you guys feel about the virtual conferences? And Brittany, you especially, because you were saying pre-show that you sort of live your life on Zoom because of your profession at the moment. And so, how effective can this be, or do you think this will be? Apple will do its best to make it as effective as possible, but really, how effective can it be?
And correct me if I'm wrong, but the thing they've mainly talked about is a forum style for interacting, which is just a higher concentration of people typing in a forum at the same time, or like how you might be more active on Twitter while you're at WW because you're also tweeting or tagging the same people. But there's not going to be face-to-face. Maybe in the lab, I don't know how that's going to work. But mostly, I think it's just going to be conversations, and some of those might end up happening on a place like Twitter instead of on the forums too, because the forums I think are mostly going to be specifically about the coding and the new releases of software. We haven't seen it yet. They're, I think, rolling it out on Thursday, something like that. And so it won't be the same because it will be just anonymous text with no eyeballs or faces.
So does this mean we lose the opportunity completely for that random interaction, or is there something maybe we could do with Facebook or Twitter? And Twitter's probably more likely, given its nature, through hashtags or whatever. Is there a way for that random interaction a little bit easier?
Potentially, but I haven't seen anybody leading the charge with it. Of this is how we're going to talk, and this is how we're going to do it, and I don't know, because we got information from Apple so late. I think some of us had hoped that they were going to do something a little bit more opinionated or interactive than they ended up doing. And so I just haven't seen anybody sort of leading that. I don't know of any specific hashtag to use, and maybe I'm missing something, but if you don't have that, I don't know how it happens.
Well, Kelly, has there ever, were there official hashtags, or were they sort of the obvious ones, WWDC or WWDC 2020 or something like that?
Yeah, I remember seeing WWDC like last year, WWDC 19, to differentiate. I feel like there will be forums for people to discuss things in an interactive fashion. I think some of that will be on Twitter. I think there'll be a lot of Slack that happens. Like I'm not going to be able to count off the top of my head. I am in many Slacks, but I know that several of them have tech channels and are specifically Mac oriented for the most part. So being able to participate on that level is going to be pretty straightforward. It's going to be like IRC for people who are very old school. Having that interactive chat mechanism where like people that you already associate with in some capacity are all together in some kind of Slack, and being able to put that to use, during the keynote or whatever. The thing that's going to be interesting to me with the online attendance is how they're going to do the labs. Because Brittany, you were right about they are doing labs. You have to sign up. It's like one-on-one with an Apple engineer, and they say you're not supposed to record it. So far, the only thing I've seen in basically going through and parsing every word of the announcement when they gave us the hard information about what was coming out is that the keynote will be a live event, and Tim Cook will be on stage as we watch it, Monday morning. It will be live on stage in person. That will be Tim Cook. But then they said the State of the Union will be presented at, I think, 1 or 2 p.m. Will be presented at, which leads me to believe it's not live, because they made a point of saying that Tim Cook will be live on Monday morning and this will not be live. And it sort of sounds like the sessions will be, will just sort of be the day's videos get released every morning at a certain time in the developer app. So
yeah, there's
on the one hand,
less community when they're all at once and nobody's ever watching it at the same time. And I know that's going to be easier for people overseas, but
but you could also like schedule that later, if the morning video comes out at 10 and then the next one comes out at 11:30 and the next one comes out at 1 or whatever, like making those things happen. But I also know that like nobody's really done it on this kind of scale before. Yeah. So nobody has tried to do it, at least in my experience so far of, and I know people who go to all kinds of different conferences, and I haven't seen anybody who's put out sessions and learning and made it available in a way that scaled like this, and in a way that is very in-depth. Like Chuck, you were talking about NAB earlier. I don't know what their session situation is like as a virtual thing. So it seems like there's a fair amount of sort of, we're doing something and it may not be the best, but we've got to do the one so that we know, like, well, nobody likes that we can't all huddle around the same lesson at the same time. And, and so like we need to maybe stagger those releases or put out the 2 morning sessions in the morning and then put out the 2 lunch ones at lunch or whatever. And make that a little bit more of a group experience. Right. Think of it as shows on TV where it airs once a week, and that's when it airs. It airs at 9 p.m. on Sunday nights.
The Mandalorian being released on a particular date and not all in one chunk. It made it much more of a shared experience that way.
Right. And then something that comes out on a streaming service, but all at once. Like we give you an entire season of something else at all the same time. Like there's that stretch where everybody sort of has to catch up. And so having The Mandalorian be one thing at a time was and this is a dramatic reenactment of Brittany and I having a text message conversation the next day. Did you watch yet? Yes. Okay, let's chat about it. Not yet. I'm not watching until lunchtime. Okay, I'll talk to you later. And then we can have that conversation, but it was always the next day. And like we even did like, I'm watching right now. Hold on. I will be watching too, and like watching it together. And that opportunity, I think, is really useful.
So you bring up a lot of points that I wanted to touch on. NAB this year, I mean, they had shorter notice. And so, they put some of the stuff online. A couple things there. And by the way, there are absolutely no criticisms here because everybody is, this is virgin territory. I mean, everybody's trying to figure this out. One thing they did, I thought in fact, there's also a legislative conference that I go to in Washington, D.C. every year. And they tried something kind of similar. And it ended up being pre-recorded that they played at a certain time in the afternoon. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, this is pre-recorded. And so why are you making me sit here and watch this now when it's really not exactly convenient for me because I'm not there and I'm not dedicated to that. So now this is kind of arbitrary. Go, Brittany.
You can always watch the dub videos later. Like that's always been true. It's just they went up after they live, when the world was real and we met in person. Like they would have the live, they would have the live session and then a rather short period of time lapsed and then it appeared in the app. And it is still there right now from years ago. I can still watch it. They're not forcing me to watch it at that time, but you could create a sense of community by having a slightly more staggered release.
So it also feels a little less intimidating to have like a couple of videos to watch between now and lunchtime as opposed to like, well, if you've given me all of them, I have to, now I'm stuck here for the day, or whatever.
Kelly, I'm not sure I agree with that because that's one of the other things that I found. Now, I go back to the fact that when I'm there, I'm present. And that's what 10 o'clock, this is what I'm supposed to do. 11 o'clock, that's what I want to do. Out of these three possibilities, this is the one I want to go to. Sitting at home, and I admit for these other conferences, I did not take the day off from work. So I've got work things interfering. I've got other things in my life interfering with the fact that I want to be participating in these things. Mm-hmm. One of the press organizations were putting together some virtual presentations, little short on Zoom virtual presentations, and then you would go with a particular vendor to a breakout room, and that worked great right up to the point that you're going to do it tomorrow afternoon at 2:00 Eastern, and I've got a meeting at 2:00 Eastern. Now not a physical meeting, obviously, because I'm on lockdown like the rest of us, but I have something else that I have to go do. And so that idea that, and we've all talked about, being present at events versus being on social media all the time when you're there. Mm-hmm. And I for one, yes, I'll do a little bit of social media when I'm on the ground somewhere, but for the most part, it is very, very cursory. I'd rather spend my time with the people around me and then go, later tell people about, what a great time I had or what events touched me. But I found as much as I wanted and I was looking forward to some of these things, they just didn't grab me in the same way. And I found myself much more easily distracted regardless of which direction, whether they were releasing something all at once for me to watch whenever.
You can't replicate the energy.
That's
you just can't do it.
Yes.
And there's no such thing as a hallway track in a virtual conference. As much as you want there to be, there's not.
I am part of some organizations who are trying to do it because we know how important it is for our conference. We'll find out how well it goes, but we are trying to do it.
I'm glad because I feel like we have all of the materials to do something much closer to the hallway track than we have seen so far. I feel like all the materials are there and we just need, like if it was Lego, we just need to assemble them in the right order and then we'd have the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah, I knew Star Wars would be a theme here.
Did you set a timer, Chuck? I feel like you set a timer. We made it happen.
We waited a long time, I feel like.
I held out as long as I could.
No, Brittany, you got the Mandalorian in earlier, so that was the first one.
Yeah.
Okay, Okay, Kelly, go ahead. I'm sorry. Brittany, go ahead.
I get that a lot. The problem is not just the energy. There is an in-person energy. Like, we feed off each other in very different ways in person than we do over video or Twitter. But there's also a certain amount of dividedness that we're going to have, at least this year at DubDub, because like Kelly said, she might be in a Slack. Well, she's not going to meet new people in that Slack probably, because they're already the people she's been in the Slack with this whole time. And some people will be on Twitter, and some people will be in like the Relay Discord or something like that. And there won't be, I was hoping that there'd be something with a little bit more uniformity that would bring more people together. Not as effectively as us all going to Cinnabar, but something. And
I feel like you might owe Brent $1 for that, but I don't know what deal he's worked out with them, so I can't say for sure.
No, Brittany, you're right. And I know even among podcasters, I know there are a number of them that are planning chat rooms or online forums or something. So to their credit, they're trying to serve their audience. And to their not credit, they're kind of continuing the fracturing process.
But somebody has to do something. I don't blame them at all. Right. They're trying to have some community happening, but it is going to be harder.
Right. Well, hey,
there are communities already. Like,
right.
If you're already part of the Relay Discord, you can hop over to the other thing and talk about the Apple stuff. And yeah.
Well, and listen, we're guilty of it right here because, when I started doing, bringing back MacVoices Live and trying to do this, okay, so this means that somebody has to set an alarm or set an appointment to watch this. Now, you can watch it later, and I'm starting to take some of these episodes and put them in the regular MacVoices feed and trying to use this as a bit of an experiment to generate community, if you will, and is this good? Does the audience that I have want this? Do they like it? Do they care? I mean, these are all questions that I think we have to ask. And beyond the conferences, we've all been in lockdown here to one degree or another, and some of us are starting to come out of it. We don't know if we might go back in, judging by all the fear that they throw around on the morning news. That may happen. I don't know. No,
don't
Brittany?
watch that.
Don't watch that.
Unless you want to start your morning off with fear. Sorry.
Yeah, well, there's a lot to be said for that. But the idea that I do think that it will change things. It has changed things, and in everyday life too. I don't think that there are going to be as many in-person business meetings when you find out that I don't have to drive 2 hours for a 15-hour meeting. I can have a 15-minute meeting. I can have a 15-minute meeting here. Is it going to be as effective? Well, maybe not, but I just got 2 hours back. And that's, now that's not going to replace, Brittany, to your point, that's not going to replace the power or the effectiveness of being in person and, seeing and talking to that other individual and getting a whole different sense of them. But I think it's going to, it's a spectrum now. And I feel like
there's a time and a place.
And these now have gained
access.
Yes. Yes.
Of having things online too.
Right. But these now have gained a lot more credibility than they had before.
Yeah.
We'll have more about virtual and in-person conferences in general and this year's WWDC in particular in the next edition of MacVoices. So I hope you'll come back then and join Brittany, Kelly, and me for more discussion. Until then, and as always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you MacVoices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.